Hi there, welcome to the second part of our MERN Stack project. And in this part, we are going to work on our back end. We're going to develop our back end so that we can connect the front end with our back end. Okay, so if you haven't watched the first part, you can go and watch it. Though you can watch this without the first part, the knowledge of the first part. But in a third part where we integrate it, if you want to understand it, you need to watch that part also. Okay, before we get started, kindly don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Also, you can support CodeWave. The links are in the description and I'll appreciate that. Thank you in advance. You can also leave your comments in there. Okay, so let's create a folder in here as server, and inside the server, that's where we're going to create our server. Okay, so we go to terminal, and in the terminal we will have to cd into the server. So cd server and just say npm init. Make sure you are in the server, and we'll put the package name as server, and this one should be left to default. Now the entry point will make it server.js. You can also make it index.js, and all the remaining ones will be default. Okay, so now we have a package.json file, and we install these packages. There are quite of many. I will leave them in the comment section so that you can copy and paste them. We'll need all of these things, yes, from here. Okay, the express, bcrypt, all those things. Okay, just press enter to install it. Okay, so we have it installed here. So we have all our packages here. Now we need to add a start script. So we say start, then we will use NodeMon. Say NodeMon server.js. Okay, so NodeMon will reload it whenever we make changes to our app. Okay, so that's why we're using NodeMon. And also we want to use the import statement. So we'll change the type, module type. So we say type is equal to module here. Okay, that's all. So now let us create our server file. So server.js, and we need to import few packages. Okay, so we'll import express from express. We'll also need the .env to hold our environment variables. It is not advisable to add your environment variable to your code like that. You need to save it in a .env file. We'll also import course from course. We will need Morgan from Morgan. We also need body parser from body parser. Okay, and we will need the SSS from SSClean. Okay, then we also need Mongo sanitize from Mongo sanitize. Okay, so we configure our .environment variable by say .env.config, and also create the app. This the cons app is equal to express app. Okay, now we need to get also a port number. So we say port should be equal to process.env.port or default of 88,000. Okay, so now let us create a connection to our database. Okay, so create a folder in your server as dbconfig or config dbconfig, and inside it will create a file of db connection .js. Okay, so here we'll need mongoose. We'll need mongoose from mongoose. Okay. Now let us create DB connection equal to, it should be an async function. Then we'll put in a try catch in order to catch errors should something go wrong. Okay, then console log the error, say db error, then we attach the error itself. So in here we say const db connection equal to await mongoose.connect mongoose.connect. Then we'll pass our db URL, which will be stored in our environment variable. So process.env.mongodb URL. Okay, we'll create this environment variable shortly. Okay. So after it, we need to console log. Okay. So console log that it has been connected successfully. So put a message that db connected successfully. Okay. So now let us go to mongodb.com and get our database URL. Okay, so make sure you sign in. If you don't have an account, create a free account. Okay, so I will sign in with my Google account. Okay, so once you are in, you can create a free cluster. Okay, so if you don't have, you see the create button and just click on create to create a new cluster. Okay, make sure you select the shared cluster, and that's it's free for test purposes. Okay, so you select a free one, you get a shared cluster, you get a free. Okay, so all the other settings you can leave them default, it should be free here. Okay, all these ones you can leave them as default and just click on create cluster. Now because in this project I have a free cluster, I will not be able to create one. I'm not sure. Change it and see. Okay, still the same thing, so I'll just cancel it. I'm sure. Okay, so I will use this same free cluster that I have. Okay, now make sure after you creating it, go to network access and make sure you add your IP address. Add your IP address here, and you can add your current one or put an IP address of this to allow connections from everywhere. Okay, so this will allow connection from everywhere. Okay, and make sure you also come to the database access and you add a user. Okay, so the username I'll put CodeWave94. Okay, and I will generate any password. Okay, and just copy it. Make sure you create your own account and add your own user, because I will remove this ones once we are done. Okay, so it's working, creating here. So I'll just come here and create the .env file. It should be in the main folder of the server. So MongoDB URL, and I'll put a password here. And when you can click on connect and select connect with VS Code and connect the URL, then paste it here. Change the username to the user you added. Mine was CodeWave94. and this was the password. Okay, so after the last slash, after the .NET // we'll add the DB name. Okay, so in here I'll put job finder underscore DB. Okay, and that will be the DB name or database name. Okay, aside this one, we'll also need other environment variables like JWT secret key for our JSON web token, and I'll just put in a value there, CodeWave 94. Okay, and then I'll also put the port of 88,000. Okay, so it should be the same as this one. Okay, oh, sorry. Okay, so now that we have it this way, we can now import our DB connection by saying DB connection. Let's check. Oh, we need to export it here. Okay, so DB connection, yes, that's all. Okay, so aside when the DB is connected, we need to apply some middlewares. Okay, so say the app.use calls, so that we will not get the error of cross-origin policy. App.also use the SSS, app.use bodyparser.json, and app.use bodyparser.url encoded. Then we'll pass the extended property to true. We'll also need app.use Mongo sanitize, app.use express.json. Then we set the limit to 10 MB. Okay, should not be here. 10 MB here. Okay. Then also app.use express.url encoded, also the extended to true. Okay. Now app.use Morgan, then we set it to development. Okay, app.listen. We want the app to listen on the port we created, and we'll give a callback function and log a message that the server or development server it's running on the port we created. Okay, so port, okay, in the port, okay, in here, good. So now we can test our app and see if it will spin on the port 88,000. So we'll say npm start, and we are greeted with error. Make sure you add .js and change this one to express mongo sanitize. Okay, npm start again, and now the app is running on the port 88,000, and our database has also been connected successfully. Okay, good. Now we'll need some folders like controllers. We also need models, and we'll also need routes. Okay, so now we'll work on the model first. We need the models. We need to get the models of the database. So we first need the user model. We'll import mongoose. From mongoose, we'll need the validator to validate our email. We will need bcrypt to encrypt our password from bcryptjs. Okay, we'll also need JWT from JSON web token to create tokens. Okay, so now we'll say const user schema equal to new mongoose.schema. Then inside this object, we will describe the various properties or fields. Okay, so first we need the first name, and we'll set the type to string. Okay, so the name will be of type string, and we'll set the required to true with the error message. Okay, so we'll set it to true, and if it's now, this will be the error message we'll send. Okay, this should be square bracket. Okay, good. Now we'll also need last name, like the same like that of first name, type string, and will also be required. We will also need email. So email, it will also be of type string. It will be required, and we want to set it to unique. It should be unique, and also we want to validate it. So we say validate. We will use the validator, and inside that validator there is a function is email. Okay, this should be validate, not validator. Okay, validate. Again, we'll need password. It will be of type string. It will be required, and we will set a minimum password. Okay, so the minimum length, that's min length of password, should be 6, and if it's not up to that, we'll send a message that it should be at least 6 characters. Okay, also we'll set the select to true. Okay, we'll also need other properties like the account type, which will also be of type string, and this one will not be required, but then we'll set a default value. The default will be seeker. Okay, so if you watch the first part, you understand where we're getting the seeker from. Okay, now we also set contact. We need contact, it will be type string. We'll need location. We'll need profile URL, and we'll need job title. We'll need job title. Okay, then we'll need about. Okay, so after this, then we'll need to bring in our timestamp. That is after the properties of the various objects, so that the timestamp will get the updated and the created date. Now we'll need some methods here. So we'll create the on save. Before we save it, we need to encrypt our password. We don't have to save the raw password like that. Okay, so create this function, and we'll say that if this model has not been modified, if it's not been modified, then we'll return it. There's no need to do anything. But if it has been modified, then we need to encrypt our password. So we'll create the sort, should be equal to await bcrypt dot get sort. Then we'll pass the sort of 10 rounds, 10, and this dot password should be equal to await bcrypt dot hash. Okay, so we hash the password with the sort that we created. Okay, and the sort comes here. Okay, we will also need other methods. So say user schema. We need a method to compare the password when we try to log in. So we'll say user schema dot methods dot compare password. compare password will also be an async function, and that one will take the user password as a prop. Okay, so we say const is match. We want to compare if the password matches with what the user has provided. Await bcrypt.compare. Then we'll pass the user password provided and the password from the database. That will be this.password, and we'll return the is match, whether it matches or not. Okay, so this is a pretty simple function. Yeah, we'll compare with this password. Okay, we will also need another one to create the JSON token. So we say user schema.methods.create create tokens will also be an async function, and we'll return jwt.sign. Okay, so sign and say the user ID should be equal to the user ID. Then we also provide the secret from the process.env.jwt secret key. Now we need to set the expires in. So we'll set it to 1 day. So the token will expire after 1 day. Okay, so this is also simple. Now we need to export it. We'll say const users is equal to mongoose.model. Then we'll pass the name of the model. Then we'll pass the user schema. Then we export it as default users. Okay. Okay, so this pretty simple model. Now we need to create one for companies. So companies model. This will be similar to that of the user. So we'll just copy this one from here and bring it here. Also const company schema equal to new mongoose.schema. Okay, so in the company we'll need the company name. It will be type of string and it will be required. Okay, company name is required. Okay, we'll need email and password. So copy the email here, bring it here, same thing. Okay, we'll also need the password. So copy password and bring it also here. Okay, so other things we'll need like the location. Okay, let's copy it from here. Okay, so here location, we also need the about and the profile URL as well as the job post. So when a company posts job, we want to keep track of the IDs. So this time it will be type of schema dot types dot object ID. So we want to save the job ID in here. It will be an array of all the IDs, and it will refer to the job model. Okay, the job model. So when we create it, we'll create it soon. Okay, this should be schema. Make sure it's imported. Schema imported here. This one is not bad. Okay, mongoose. Mongoose. Okay, schema. So it should be okay. That's it. So schema.types. Types. Good. So now let us also create. We'll copy these same methods because we need to encrypt password. Change this to company schema. Then we also need to create tokens and compare the password. Okay. Okay. Don't forget to change the user schema to company schema. Okay, so we also need to export it. So companies will be equal to companies mongoose.model companies, and we'll pass the company schema. and export default company. Okay, then let's create that of jobs model. Okay, that one will need cons.job schema will be equal to new mongoose.schema, and make sure it's imported at the top. Then inside this, we'll need the company that posted that job, and this will also be of type reference. So the type will be schema.types, the ID of the company that posted that job. Okay, so schema.types.object ID, then we'll refer to the company's model. So companies. Okay, so we'll save the company ID here. Then the job title will be type string, and it will be set to required. Required will be true. Okay, and job title is required. We'll also required. Okay, we'll also need the job type. So job type will also be type string, and will also be set to required. We'll need other things like the location of the job will also be required, string required. Feel free to add those data you want. We'll also need the salary will be required. We'll need the vacancies, the number of positions available. It will be type number. Okay, then we also need the salary should be number. Okay, we'll also need the experience. Okay, we'll need the experience. Will also be number, not required, but then we'll set a default value of 1, so at least 1 year. Or okay, let's make it 0. We'll also need the details, the job details. Now this job details will be an array that contains the description, which will be type of string, and also the requirement. So requirements, and that one will also be type of string. So you can see how we can create a nested object inside an object. Okay, so this object will all be inside the detail. Okay, so now application, we also want to know the number of people who have applied. So when they applied, we'll save their IDs in here. So as usual, schema.types.object ID, and we'll reference the user model. Okay, then we also need to get the timestamp to true. Okay, let's not forget to also export it here. So cons jobs is equal to mongoose.model. Then pass the name of the model jobs, then the job schema, export default jobs. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so now we need to go to our controllers. So in the controllers, we will need to create a controller for authentication. So we'll say Auth controller. Okay, so we'll say export cons register async function. We will need the request, the response, and the next function. Okay, We'll need another one for also login or sign in. Okay. Now inside the register, we'll need to get the various properties from the object that's coming. So the const, we'll need the first name, the last name, the email, and the password from the request body. Okay, now let us validate it. So we'll check if the first name does not exist. If not, okay, so if it does not exist, then we'll pass the error to the next function. Okay, we'll do same for email, last name, and the password. Okay, last name and password. Okay, so now let us continue. Okay, so we'll put it in a try catch in order to catch errors. Okay, we'll console log it. Now we'll need to check if the user account exists so that we don't create duplicated accounts. So say user exists equal to await the user model. Okay, let's make sure we have spotted it here. So make sure you import it here, the user model, and don't forget to add the .js. Okay, the user model dot find one, and we're going to find by the email. Okay, find by the email. Now if the user exists, meaning that that email has already been used, so we'll say next, they will pass the error that email address already exists. Okay, then you can use that email, then we'll return. Okay, but if that email account does not exist, then meaning we can create a new user. So say const user equal to await users dot create, then we'll pass those options of first name, last name, email, and password. Okay, so this will create a new user. Now when the new user is created, we will have to also create a token before we send it to the user. So we'll say const token equal to the user dot create JWT. Okay, so that's the method we created. Then we send the response to the user with the status code of 201. Send it to the user. We'll send the status, the success to true. We'll send a message of account created successfully. Then we also create the user object, send the user object, but we don't want to send the password, so we'll just create it user object, which will contain the ID as a user ID, the first name as first name, last name as last name, and the email as well as the account type. Okay, it is not advisable to send your password to the front end like that, so that's why we're doing this way. Then we'll also send the token. Okay, so when there's error, let's also send this to the user so that the user will know there's an error. Okay, so that is it. Now if we want to sign in also, we'll need to get the user email and the password from the request.body, and as usual, try catch we console log the error, and we should send this also to the user. So we will have to check if the password in the email is not empty. If it's empty, we send this error to the user. If they are provided, we need to check if the email, we need to check if the user exists by reasons of the email. So await users.find one. Okay, that's the email. Find with the email. And also we want to select the password. So we say select plus password. Okay. Then if the user does not exist, we will have to send a message to the user that that account or it's invalid email or password. Okay, then we return. However, if the user exists, we need to compare the password also. Okay, so use the const match equal to await user dot compare password. Okay, then we pass the password here, and this compare password is this function method we created here. Okay, which will return whether it's true or not. Okay, so now if there is password, if its match is false, then we need to send to the user that invalid password or invalid username or password. So you can check all, then return. However, if its match is true, then we need to create a token again. So we'll set the password to undefined of that object. Then we create the token, go to user.createJWT. Then we send back the response to the user. So we say response.status201.send. Then in an object we send, okay, we can make it JSON as well. We send a success to true, the message to login successfully, and we send the user, and we're sending the user because we've set the password to undefined. So the password, then we send the token as well. Okay. Okay. So now let us go to the route and create routes for this. So we say auth route, we'll need express from express. Then we'll create. We'll also need the rate limit from express rate limit. We need to limit the number of calls from IP, a particular IP address. Okay, so we say limiter equal to rate limit. Then I'll just paste this I had from the internet. Okay, you can check their documentation also. Now let us create a router equal to express.router. It should be capital. Okay, and now let's create the various routes. So the register route will be route.post. This will be a post method, and the endpoint will be register. Then we'll pass the register function. Don't forget to add the .js, the JX. We'll also need to pass a middleware of the limiter. Okay. Then we'll also create another route for login. That will also be a post route that we'll call the sign-in function we created. Okay. Now export the route here, default router. Okay. So when we go, we need to create an index file in our router so that we'll send all the routes from here. So we'll need express from express. We also need to import our auth route, the one we just created, .js. Okay, then we'll create the router as express router. Now we also need to create a path, and the path will be /API dash v1 for version 1. You can put anything you want there. Okay, so when the router, so the router.use, then in a backtick template string we'll put the path, then auth, then we call the auth route. Okay, so this will be like after the local host will be /API dash v1 slash, then auth, then we go to either register or sign in. Okay, so this is how it will be. Don't forget to export it here, default router. So now let us go into our server and import this. Okay, so here we'll say app.use, the router we just created, the one from the index. Okay, make sure, okay, it's also here. So after saving, we get an error, and the error is coming from here. It should be use. Okay, use. Let's see. Okay, it's working. So now I'll bring my Postman, a very handy tool to test your API calls. So I'll create a new collection, and inside the new collection I'll add a request. Okay, and name the request as register user. Okay, and change the method to post method, and this will go to HTTP. Okay, please do not add X to it. This is not an HTTPX. This should be HTTP. Okay, so we go to localhost port 88,000 /API/auth/register and select the body. And the body, make sure it's JSON, and we create this JSON object here. Okay, so in the body you have the raw and JSON. Then we need the first name, so I'll put any name there. Put any name you want. The last name, the email, and I'll also put email. Okay, and I'll put password. The password will be just 12345. Okay, so if I send, now we're getting this error. Okay, let's go back and check what is happening. Okay, so here JWT, oh, here we made it token. It should be JWT. Okay, and here should also be gen sort and not get. It should be GEN. So let's change those ones in here too. Create JWT and also gen sort. Okay, generate sort in simple terms. Okay, so let's send it again and see if it works. We send, oh good, and now we have a response that the user has been created, but the token wasn't created. What might be the problem? Okay, well, we have it here. Okay, now let's try to log in and see if that one also work. So user sign in, body, it should also be a post method. Copy it here and change the endpoint to login. Okay, I'll just want to copy this, and we will not need email here. We will not need the username and send it. Okay, we get an error. Okay, let's see why we're getting an error. So if we check here, JWT, okay, and yeah, okay, gen sort, the sign in here, the same thing. Okay, so let's try it again and see. Okay, so now if we try it again, now it works. Okay, and the token has been created. Okay, so now let's try the login again. Okay, so now if we put a wrong password, we getting this error message. Of invalid password. Okay, and it's also printed here. If we put the correct one and change our email, also I'm sure, okay, it's working fine. Okay, so let's make it correct and see. Now we get it here. Okay, so we've been able to create a user and also sign in or log in. Okay, that's fine. Excellent. Okay, so now let us create another, let's create a middleware, an error middleware, as well as we create the authentication middleware. So we say error middleware to log our errors. Okay, so we say error handler or middleware, or the next function, the next we have been calling, we need to pass appropriate error here. Okay, so I had this handy error handler from the internet. So error middleware equal to, we'll get the error, the request, the response, and the next. So in here, we'll say const default error should be equal to, so we'll have the status code and the default of 404, then the success will be failed, then the message will be the error we are getting, this error here. Okay, so if we call next here, then we'll get that error here. Okay, so after that one, we'll say if the error dot name is equal to validation error, then the default error dot status code should still be 404. Then we'll check if the message the message will be equal to object dot values. In it we'll get the error and the errors, and we will map over the errors and just join them. So when we map over them, we'll get each element and return the element to the default message. So the element dot message, and we just want to join it with comma. Okay, so we want to join all the errors with separated by commas. Okay, so after first, we'll also need to check for another thing. As I said, I had this handy utility from the internet, so it's nothing special here we're doing. So we just want to check the error code and check if it exists and the error code is equal to 11,000. We'll send the default error status code to 404, and the message will be also of object.keyValues, upload.values. we'll get the error dot key values then we append or attach the fields must be unique. So for instance, if we're trying to have a duplicated field, then we'll send this error that it must be unique. And one is the email. Okay, so we'll send a response of rest.status. The status code will be the default error.status code. The JSON will send the success as default error.success, and the message as also the message. We'll export default error middleware. Okay, so now come to our server.js, and inside here we need to use middleware. So we'll say we need to use this error middleware. So app.use error middleware. Okay, and let's don't forget to import it and add the JSX. We are greeted with error app.middleware. Oh, don't add the parentheses. Okay, so it should work. Okay, good, it's working. So now let's try it with the wrong password, and now we get the invalid email password. So this message is sent to the error handler, and now it's sent to us. Okay, let's remove this from here. Okay, so if it's the email is also wrong, yes, we get the appropriate message here. Okay, so now what next? Okay, so let us copy this and replace it with what we have in a company to avoid the errors again. We'll replace all of them here. Good, and don't forget to change the user schema to company schema. So highlight all of them and change it to company schema. Okay. So now we need to create the Auth middleware. So we import JWT from JSON Web Token. Then we say user auth, or you can put any name, user auth async function. We get a response, request response, and the next. So now we need to check the header. We get the header. So we say auth header equal to request dot headers dot authorization. Okay, so the headers will come with authorization. It should be header and not handler. Okay, so let's check if the header exists. So if it doesn't exist, or it doesn't start with the keyword bearer, then means it does not exist. So if it doesn't start with this bearer here, then we need to send a message to the user. So we'll pass the next function. So if yes, okay, so we'll pass next function, then we'll say authentication field. Okay, however, if it exists, we need to verify it. So we'll say token equal to auth header dot split. So we want to split it by the space. So it will be in a form of like bearer space, then the token will come. So we need to split it with this space. Okay. token. We split it with a space and take the second element or item, that is with the index 1. Okay, so let's wrap it in a try catch, console log the error, and send the appropriate error as authentication field. So we say request.body.user equal to user ID, then the ID we have destructed from the token. So user token.id. If you remember, when we're creating the token, we added the user ID. Okay, so when we verify it, we should be able to get it. Okay, so we've attached it to it. We need to go to the next function. So the next function will then run. Okay. Okay, so now let's come to another thing. We'll create the user controller where we can update as well as get users. So import mongoose and also export const update user. It will be an async function. We'll get the request, the response, and the next. Okay, so I'll duplicate this, and this one will be for get user. Okay, in here, okay, so here we will get the user data from the body, and we'll get the first name, the last name, the email, the contact location. Okay, we'll need also profile URL. We'll also need the a job title, and we also need the about. Okay, so all these things are coming from the model we created here. Okay, now after we getting it, we need to wrap the next function in a try catch. Okay, we console log the error as well as send the appropriate error message. Okay, with the status code of 404. Okay, so inside this try catch, we will need to validate all fields, and if they don't exist, we'll send that please provide all required fields. And these are the fields, so we'll need to put them in the if here. Okay, so we'll check if their first name does not exist, or last name, or email, or contact, or what again, or job title, or about. If they don't exist, then we can send the message to the user that you need to provide them. Okay, now also we need to get the ID from the request.body.user id. Okay, so when we when we're verifying from our Auth middleware, you see that we attach it here. So that is what we're getting from here. Okay, so now we can use this code here to check if the ID is indeed the MongoDB object type, If it's not, we can send a message to the user that this ID does not exist or cannot be found. So mongoose.types.object ID is valid. We check the ID. If it's not, we just have to send a response to the user that the user, no user with this ID. Okay. However, if everything is true, we need to get the updated object. We just copy this and paste it here. Okay, and add the ID to it. Okay, so say underscore ID, go to the ID. Okay. Okay, so in here, then we say const user equal to await users dot find by ID and update. Find by ID and update. We pass the ID, the update object, and we set the new to also true to allow if there are new fields to also be saved in there. Okay, so we need to create a new token like we have been doing. So user.create UWT, then we send the response back to the user. But before sending, as usual, we need to set the password field to undefined. Then we say response.status.201 or 2. Okay. Then JSON, we send the success, the message, as well as the user object. Updated, then the user, then the token. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty simple in here. Oh, my bad. This needs to be inside the update function. My bad. Okay, good. It needs to be here. Okay, good. So now let us come to the get user. We put in a try catch. We console log the errors as well as send it back to the user. Okay. Now this function will get the user. You can use it to get your user details. So before you get your user details, we will need to get the ID, meaning you have to be an authorized person before you can get your details. So we'll get your ID. And after that, we'll find the user by saying await users dot find by ID users. Okay, find by ID. So we'll pass the ID here, and that's called ID equal to ID. And as usual, we set the password to undefined. But before then, let's even check if the user exists. Okay, so check if the user exists or not. If the user does not, we send a message. If the user exists, then we set the password to undefined and we send a response like we have been doing. We send this response to the user. Okay, we send this response, so now we can try it out and see if it's working. Duplicate it and rename it as get user. Okay, don't forget we didn't create the route, so say user routes. We'll need express. Okay, let me close some of these things. .js. Okay, close some. Okay, now we'll need express here. We need to create a router, express router. So then the various endpoints, we'll have a get endpoint. So router.get, this will be a post because we need to verify the user. So get user. Then here we'll use the auth user auth function we created from the auth middleware. We did not export it, so export it as user auth and import it here. It should be this way. Okay, .js. Why is it this way? Okay, let's import it and see. Okay, and we'll also call the get user. So first the user auth will run, then after that one it's passed, then the get user. So duplicate it and update user also. Okay, so the update user will be a put route, and we'll just export the router here. We go to the index, import it from here, import user route from user route.js, and we'll put router.use. This will be users and user route. Okay, so we have an error here. The error is coming from here. It should be this .js. Okay, and okay, that one, it's working. Okay, so in here, yeah, so now we can test it and see. So user dot get user, this one. Okay, so we're gonna get it here. Okay, so before we get it, we'll need to set our token. So copy this token, so go to authorization and go to bearer token and just paste the token there. Don't forget to also change it to a post route. Okay, we get an authentication field. What will be the error? JWT. This will come from here. Oh, okay, so make sure the key is correct. Okay, let's go and try it again. Okay, so if we go to its post, the token is here, we send it. So if I remove the token and send it, we're getting invalid. If I paste it and send, you see now we're getting a result here. Good. So now we've been able to register, login, sign in, and also get the user. Now let's update it and see. So the update route, update user, I'll change few properties here. Software engineer, and send it and see. Oh, the put route is also working. Good. So now we've been able to create 4 routes. Okay, it works. Good. So now let's move to a different thing. Okay, close all of them and go to the controllers and create company controller. Okay, so in here we import mongoose, export cons, register. This will be similar to the user one. Okay, we need the request, the response, and the next we also need to get the name from the name, email, password from the body. Okay, so I'll copy and bring these validations like the same for that we did for user. Okay, and try catch, we console log and send the error. Okay, inside here we need to perform the action. So we need to first check if the account exists or not. Okay, so we await companies, and also let's go to the model and say, okay, we're exporting it here. Make sure it's imported. Company, okay, .js. Okay, so find one, find by the email. So if the account exists, they will send a message that the email has already been used, so log in. If not, then we create a new account registered. Okay, so create a new account. So say const account equal to await companies dot create. They will pass the name, the email, and the password. Okay, so we just have to create a token, and like we did here, we just copy it. Okay, we just bring it here and change this to company, this to company. Okay, then we send the response to the user, JSON. Then we send the success, the message, and the data. Send the ID, the name, and the email. So we send the email also. Okay, then we send the token as well. Okay, then we send the token. Okay, so we'll need another one for signing, and like that, the one we did, we get the various email and password and a try catch. We'll perform the action, we'll validate it. If they don't exist, we send appropriate error. And in here, we'll check if the account exists by regions of the email. So find one by the email, and we also want to select the password. So select plus password. So if company does not exist, send error. If it exists, then we compare the password. Okay, like we did for the user. If the password is correct, Then we set it to undefined. Then we create a token. Okay, so these are the functions or the methods we call in. We create the token, then send the response to the user. Okay. Okay, so now let's also create other functions like update company profile. We'll need another one to get company profile. Okay, so inside here, we will need to get all these values from the body like we did for the user. So these are the properties here coming from the model here. Okay, so we'll get all of this from the user. Then in a try catch, we'll perform the action. Okay, we need to validate it. So this will check if they all exist or not. If they all exist, then we need to get the ID after we verify the user. And this will check if the ID is a MongoDB object ID. Okay, so we say update company, go to, then we pass this object with the ID and the ID. Okay, so the company dot equal to await company dot find by ID and update. Pass the ID and the update company data. We set the new to true, like we've done it before. Then we create a new token and set the password to undefined. Then we send the response back to the user with a message it has been updated. Okay, that's it. Now let's come to get profile. Okay, let's duplicate this. We'll need other functions as well. So we get all the companies as well as get a single company. I mean, get the company job listing. So get the job of all the company. I mean, the company that's posted that job, we get the company and the jobs. Then we get a single company by ID. Okay. So in here will be pretty simple. Okay, so copy here in a try catch, then I bring this one here. Okay, so inside we'll get the ID. After getting the ID, then we'll find by ID and we set the password to undefined and also check if the company exists or not. If it exists, let's bring this one down. If it exists, then we send it to the user. Okay, let's copy this. Now in get companies, try catch. Okay, in here we are going to get all the companies. So this is where we'll need to get the search, the sort, and the location as from the query, because you can search by parameters. Then we create an object of query object. Now if the search exists, we want the query object dot name. So we want to search the company by name, and we're going to use a regex expression here by name and set the option to I. We want to omit the case sensitivity. Okay. Okay. So it will not be case sensitive. And also we want, if the location exists, then we'll attach the location to also the query object, and we'll search by the location. So you can search a company by the name or by their location. Also, we need to do perform the query. So we say let query result be equal to companies.find. Then we pass the query to it. Then .select. We don't want to select the password because we will not need it here. So we don't want to select the password. Okay. So now let us sort the data we're getting. So if the sort is equal to newest, meaning we want to get the recent one first, then we will just say query.result equal to query result dot sort. Then we'll sort by the created at date. So minus created at date will bring the recent one first. Okay. Likewise, if it's equal to oldest, meaning we just need to remove it, and the first one will be the first one, or yeah, the recent one will be the last one. Okay, we need to change this. If we want to arrange it by alphabetical order, then we need to use the name. Okay, if we want it to be Z to A, then minus name. Okay, that's simple. Now let us also do pagination. Okay, so say const page is equal to number. We want it to be number, and we'll get it from the request.query.page. If it does not exist, we want to start from page 1. We also need to get the limit of items we can fetch. If it does not exist, we want to set it to 20. Now we can also get the skip, because if we want to do the pagination, we need to skip certain items. Okay, so the first one will fetch, we'll go to the next page, we'll skip that one. So skip will also be the page minus 1, then we multiply by the limit. Okay. Okay. Now let us also count the records we have because of the pagination. So we need to get the total records. So total will be equal to await companies.count document. Then we'll pass the query result. Also, we need to get the number of pages, and the number of pages will be equal to math.sew function. They will pass total divided by the limit. Okay. So whenever we divide the total number of records by the limit, we should get the number of pages. So query result equal to query result dot limit, then we pass in the limit. Now we want to get the limit, the actual number of records we need to get for each page. Okay, so now if you want to move from one page to another, you put the skip here and put the number of records you want to skip. However, I do not want to move to different pages. I just want to show more. So the first 20 items will be there. Then when you click show more, it moves to 40. Then it just be going like that. So if you want to change the first 20 to the next 20, then you use the first function at the top here. So I will remove this and instead multiply the limit by the pages. So if we have page 1 times 20 will be 20, page 2 times 20, then we get 40 items. Okay, Okay, so now we say const companies equal to await query result. Okay, so now we have our companies filtered, so we need to send a response of 200. And 200, then we send the companies, so the success will be true. Then we'll send the total number of items, so we'll send total. Then we'll send the data as the companies, we'll send the pages, then the number of pages. Okay, so we'll send all of this to the front end or to the user. Okay, now let us come to the job listing. So in here we also need to get the search and the sort, as well as get the ID from the user ID after we verifying the token. Okay, we put the console log here. So in here we'll get the query object, and if the search exists, we also need to use the same thing. So we want to search the company by location. Set the company by location. Okay, now we also want to use this sort. Now if the sort exists, unlike this one we're doing it here, this one we're doing it a bit differently. So if it exists, we just set the sorting to, but the same thing created at date or dot. Okay, so now is let query result. Okay, so we let our query result go to the same thing. We want to fetch the company by ID and put the populate. We want to populate the job post. The job post. If you remember, in our model, we created the job post ID. So we want to populate all the job post with the IDs. So the const companies equal to await query result, and we send the result to the user. We send the result to the user. Okay. Okay, so now let's come to the last one. We want to get the company by ID. Okay, so this one we will not want to populate the job listing. We just want to get a company. So we get the ID as a parameter, and we find the record by the ID. We sort it. Okay, we'll populate the job post here as well, and we'll set a password to undefined. Then we send, if it does not exist, we send company not found. If it exists, we send a status of 200, and we send the data to the user. Okay. Okay, so that's the functions we'll need. Okay, so now let us create routes for companies route.js. We'll import express, then create okay, we'll create this limiter also here, but then let's import it. Yeah, so import rate limit, then we'll paste the one we copied. Now let us create the various routes or endpoints. So const router equal to express.router. So we need the register endpoint, will be a post route. So register, we pass the limiter and the register function. Make sure you import it from company and not the alt. Okay, company.js. Okay, we also need the login. It's login and change the function to the sign in from company. Okay. We'll also need another one. So router.post. Then we get company profile. Okay. Company profile. It has to be authorized request or yeah. Then get company profile. Okay. Another one is router.post. Also get company job listing. Okay, it also has to be protected. Company job listing. Okay, so these ones are get routes. Get, we want to get data, and also we want to update. So that will be a put route. So put update company profile or update company, yeah. Then import it. Okay. Okay, let's add this one here. So route dot get, so / we just want to get all the companies, and also another get route, we want to get company by ID. Okay, so these are the various routes we need. Let's go into our index in the route and also import company route. Okay, company routes, and change it to companies and company routes. Company, okay. We have an error. Click in here. Oh, we did not export it. So export default router. Okay, so it's working. Okay, so let's try it and see. Let's duplicate this one. Change it to register company. Rename it register company. It should be a put route, post route. Then change this one to raw, body raw JSON. Then paste this name. We don't need first name, we need email and password. Okay. copy this, bring it here, and change it to company. So it should be companies, then okay, register. Okay, so company register. I suppose companies. Okay, companies register. Oh, beautiful. So you see, once you create one and it's successful, creating other ones become easy. Okay. So now let's duplicate this one, sign in, and say company sign in or login. Okay, so in here, we just copy this, bring it here, change this to login. We also need copy the email and password, bring it here. We will not need name. Okay. Send it, and also working fine. Okay, so this, now let's go to get company profile. Get company profile. Duplicate this. Company profile. Okay, so it's a post route, then company / get. Then we need to attach our token. So bearer token. Oh, we're getting it error here. Copy token, put it here, send. Okay, now it's working. So let's also try to get all companies. So now we get all companies with the number of pages in the total of 2. So if we change the limit, to okay, so we change it to 1. Now we have total of 2 and 2 pages. Okay, let's make it 20. So feel free to make it whatever you want. Okay, let us also try a different route. We want to this time update company, and that one is also working. Update is also working fine. Okay, so now let's go to something different. We're going to have job controller. So we import Mongoose from Mongoose. Now export const create job async. We get a request, the response, and the next we also need to update job. So in here we'll put a try catch and put the and copy it and paste it in here. Okay, so when I duplicate this, so it comes with it. We'll also need to get job post, and there's another one. We'll get job by ID, and another one is we can delete the job. Okay, so let's work on this fast. So we'll get all of this from the user body, the request body, and this correspond to all of the terms here. So we'll get all of this, and we need to validate it, make sure they all exist. Now we also need to get the ID of the person creating the job and make sure it's a Mongoose object ID. Now we create an object of job post and put it in the format that we want here. So we put the company as the company ID. So we need to put OK. So this is the format. Now we just have to say const job, we go to new job. Okay, so you go to new job, then we pass the job post, then we just save it. That's all. Now we also need to update the company with the job ID, the company job post. Okay, so we first need to get the company by ID, then we push the job ID into the company job post, then update it. Okay, pretty simple. Now, when we are done with the update, we just need to push the response to the user. Okay, that's pretty simple. Let's talk about the update. We also need to get this same data. When we get it, we get also the job ID from the parameter or the params. We also need to verify that they all exist. Then we check, we get the user ID and verify the user ID is also a Mongoose object ID. Then we create an object of the updated post. Then we find and update it by the ID. Okay, then we send the response. Okay, simple. Now let us get job post. This will be similar to the one we did for the companies. The pagination. So in here, we also get the search, the sort, the location, job type, and the experience. Now, the job type will be in a form of a list separated by comma. So, for instance, we have full-time, comma, part-time, like this, full-time, comma, part-time. So we need to separate it by the comma so that we'll get it in a form of array. And this one will also be in a form of 2-6, so we need to separate it by the hyphen. Okay. Okay, so in here, we create a query object again, and as we have been doing. But this time, the job type, if it exists, we'll use the in. So we want to search if the job type is in, then we fetch those records that matches that kind of parameter. So we also want to set the experience and use the greater than and the less than. So we'll have it like this, 2, 6 in an array form. So the first one and the second one will take this one. Okay. So greater than and less than. So after that, we also need to check if the search exists, then we use this or. So that same search, if it matches the title or matches the job type, then we fetch the record. That's why we're using the or. Okay, so we use this. So after that, we pass it to the object query, the search query, then we need to get the query result will be jobs.find based on the query object. We also want to populate the company that created that job, but we don't want to select the password. That's why we put in minus password here. Okay, we don't need the password. Now let us also do sorting. So this one we have created it before, so no need to waste time on it. Okay, then let us also do pagination. So we also need to get the page, the limit, and the skip, and this will be the same as that of the company. Okay, so we just need to also get the total jobs as well as the number of pages. Okay, here also we'll be showing more instead of moving to page 1, page 2, page, so there's no need to add a skip. Okay, so once we are done and we have all the jobs that we need to send a response of status 200.json. Then we send, okay, the total jobs, the data, the page, and the number of pages. Okay, done. Let us get the job by ID. We first need to get the ID from the parameter params. Okay, request.params. And after that, we need to find the job that has that particular ID and populate the company without the password. Once done, we can now check if the job exists. If it does not, we send a response to the user that job post not found. If it exists, then we send the job to the user. Okay, so if it exists, then we send the result. But before we send it, we also need to get like similar job post. So we'll create a query, a search query here, and use the job title to match if we have something like to match the job title or the job type. Okay, so the same query we have been using. We don't want to select the password. We pass the sorting based on the index, and this one we want to limit it. We just need only 6 items. So if you need more, you can increase the number there. Then we pass it to similar objects. So our wait query. So now we have the similar objects, jobs object. So as we send the data as job, we send similar jobs also. Okay, now let us try to also delete it, and that is pretty simple. We need to get the job ID, the job we want to delete, and make sure the user is authorized. Okay, and we just delete it. Okay, so the job find by ID and delete, then we send the response that the job has been deleted. That's all. Okay, so now we are done with the job controller. Okay, now let us create the routes for that. So jobs route, we need express, create a route, a router, express router. Then we create the various routes. So I'll bring this. We have the upload job route, will be a post route. I will make sure the user is authenticated to upload job.js. We'll also need to the update job, import it. We'll also need the find jobs route. This is our post. This is for update. And this is for get. Okay, so get. So import this and also import this. Now this will be for delete job post, and we'll delete it. Okay, also we'll need that the user is authenticated before you can delete. Okay, let's export it here. Import job routes from job routes.js. Duplicate one of these changes to job here and change this to jobs. Okay, jobs. Now we have an error. Where is it coming from? Jobs controller .js. Okay, now it's working. So now let's try it out and see if everything works as expected. Okay, so let me copy this as a company. Okay, so add request, upload job, post jobs slash upload job, put the token here, go to body, raw, JSON, then bring in the various fields. So job title, job type, location, salary, Okay, so if we send it now, the job has been created successfully. We have the details here and everything in working here. The company ID is also here. Okay, so now let us go to the get company profile and send the request. Now you see we get it with the job post here. The ID is also here. Okay, so now this is done. Let us talk about this. Update job. Update job, then we put, let's copy the ID here. So /ID, and that should be, let's change some values here. It should be a put route. Something is not working. Oh, okay, some fields are missing. Let me copy this one and also add it. Okay, so if I send it, okay, now it goes through. So the job has been updated. Okay, now let's talk about find jobs. Find jobs. put the endpoint. It should be a get route. The post, we send it. We have a challenge. Find job. Let me copy this one. Bring it here and send it. Still the same thing. Okay, so it's working now. Okay, so we get a various job post here. Okay. Then let's talk about job detail. So that one, you put the details and copy one ID here. We send, we get a job and the job detail. Okay. Beneath it is also the similar job post. Okay. Now let's put delete. Let's test that one also. Change this to delete. Change here to delete and delete this job. It has been deleted successfully. If we change back to get, we're not getting it because it has been deleted. Now we can upload a new job. That's all. Okay, so if you've come to this far, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the third part where we integrate the front end and the back end. You can also support CodeWave. Thank you.